What if your wedding wasn't just a party, but the kind of getaway you've always hoped for? Something that really feels like it was made just for you and your favourite people. Maybe it's on the rooftop of a warehouse in Brooklyn, New York, or a chateau in the south of France. How do you make these kind of big dreams come to life? And what's actually possible when you start planning something from overseas? In this episode, I'm chatting with Rachel from Apricity, the New York based wedding planner who works with her colleague Beryl in Paris to create destination weddings on both sides of the Atlantic. You'll learn what to expect when planning a wedding from afar, from the advantages and the challenges to the practical tips that help make a wedding weekend feel special and personal no matter where you end up. Plus, Rachel shares what's trending right now in destination weddings, her top 3 tips to get your planning started, and how to narrow down your destination by tuning in to how different places make you feel. Let's get stuck into it. Unbridely is a community of pro wedding vendors who believe in freedom and integrity in weddings, giving you options, solutions, tips, and tricks to create the experience and memories that you and your fiancé really want and deserve. Because we believe that weddings are a team sport. With how-tos, stories, and interviews with recently married couples, we find out what went right and what they'd change if they could go back and do it all over again. I'm Camille, and welcome to the Unbridely podcast. Hi, Rachel. It's so fantastic to meet you, and thank you for sitting down and having a chat.
Hi, Camille. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited because, well, you might be able to tell, dear listener, Rachel's not one of my Aussie colleagues. She's on the other side of the planet. So I might let you, though, Rachel, say who you are, what you do, and your speciality.
Absolutely. So I am a wedding planner based in New York City. Next month, I'm coming up on my 10th year in New York. I actually grew up in Texas. They say after 10 years, you're a real New Yorker, but I don't, I don't know if I can claim that quite yet. But based in New York City, planning weddings up here. And I have a business partner based in France. So we kind of, split our weddings between the Northeast of America and France and all around Europe, really.
Yeah. And this is a really big deal at the moment, Rachel, isn't it? And can I ask how long you've been a wedding planner?
Yes, I started planning my first year in New York. So 10 years in New York, 10 years planning as well. I didn't really do any weddings while I was in Texas.
Okay. New York weddings through and through. You've got the history behind you, and I'm certain that you would be seeing what we're seeing here in Australia, which is this massive uptick in the interest of elopements and destination weddings. Are you seeing it? Are you feeling it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we love to see it. It's, in terms of New York City, I mean, New York City is such a melting pot of people. And really, very few people, I don't think it was even maybe a year or two before I met a real born and bred New Yorker after living in the city. So I'm grateful that people consider this a destination in and of itself, kind of right in my backyard, which is amazing. Having that is absolutely incredible and being a part of that industry. And then having my business partner over in France. I mean, she's French, so having her on the ground over there and able to speak the language and be in the time zone and kind of be there. I mean, honestly, a lot of our European weddings, majority of them are not European couples. They're all coming from the States, most of them. So we also really appreciate having her there so that she can really kind of be boots on the ground, if you will, to help those couples who are looking to get married in Europe.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Rachel. Here in Australia, because we're so far away from everyone, everything is a destination
Is a
wedding for
destination.
us.
Yes.
We go to Tasmania, destination wedding. We
Yes.
go to
Especially
New
if you're from
Zealand.
Perth, right?
Yeah, exactly. Perth is a hike. It's a real hike. So for you, how do you categorize destination weddings?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a loose term in some ways. I mean, I come from the South, so people from the South, not all of them by any means, don't want to generalize, but I know people who have never stepped out of the state of Texas. I mean, given it's a massive state. So for them, anything is a destination. And I think, for me, I guess I sat on this a little bit and tried to kind of define this term. Maybe the biggest way I could describe it is if the couple is traveling to a place where they're not originally from or have not lived together as a couple in that destination, then maybe that is something that kind of biggest picture could be. And then I think you can kind of go back and forth a little bit about, what percentage of the guest count is traveling and
Mm.
is it on your continent versus not, those kinds of things I think can all kind of contribute to the term destination. But maybe kind of starting with the couple and what these places mean to them, if it's their home turf or not, I think is maybe the biggest picture of the term.
And so, really, the big difference, I'm guessing, for the couple is they just don't have that home ground advantage. Do you find that, Rachel?
Yeah, I think so. And it's interesting. And I'm not really one to necessarily, I mean, I love destination weddings. I think that they're incredible. I'm at an age right now where a lot of my friend group is getting married. And I think as wedding guests, I hear, more so than I do as a planner. Why are we going to this place? What does this
Yes.
place mean to this couple? Is it relevant to them, or are we just going to somewhere that they think looks fun? Should they just go on vacation to that place, or should we all go with
Yes.
them?
And save us all the money? Maybe.
um, and again, I think that question as the why is a big one in terms of couples. And again, if the answer to that couple is no, we have no tie to that area, we just want to be there, then I think that's completely fine. But maybe they just have to go into it with the mindset of we may be excited about this, but some of our guests may not join because, for
Mm.
whatever reasons. And some of the, I don't know, some couples hope for the drop off, to be quite honest, when you're booking a destination wedding, and they kind of hope for things to maybe land a little bit smaller and more intimate. So to each his own, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it helps to, yeah, like cull that guest list a little bit, you know, just save a little there. And yeah, I love that, Rachel. Keep it a little smaller. So, where are you seeing couples wanting to have their destination weddings? Like, where are the most popular places you're finding?
In terms of popular places, New York specific, I think we're seeing a lot more couples kind of going up into the Hudson Valley, north of the city, going out into the Hamptons, all of these places that are within a skip and a hop of New York City, and kind of bringing their couples on a little like mini destination, if you will.
Mm.
I see a lot of couples looking for that checked box of a place that can house some, if not all, people for the weekend. So they can kind of wake up and have, a different, a welcome party, and they all, kind of hang there and spend more than just, arrive at 6 p.m., leave at midnight kind of thing. I mean, I know
Yeah.
Australians do not leave at midnight, but you know what I mean? The shorter wedding versus
Yeah.
full weekend. So yeah, I think that's kind of what I'm seeing. I mean, someone said this recently, and I'm happy for us to kind of ride that wave that Gen Z is loving Europe, which is perfect for us. And I don't know. I also thought recently that I'm seeing a lot in America, at least, of the kind of Western wedding, the Montana, the, Wyoming. I don't know if it was maybe just having something kind of set out in the country is kind of cool. Maybe it's Beyonce's new album. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Who
I don't
knows?
know what the contributing factor is, but I'm seeing a lot of kind of people navigating out west within America, which is pretty fun and, a really cool kind of destination within the States, if you will.
Yeah. Well, it provides a whole new canvas for someone like you, right? You must be like a kid in a
Exactly.
candy store.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are vendors all over each state. I think that sometimes a lot of kind of the middle states get a lot of, vendors that are maybe marketing to their state, whereas I think that a lot of the coasts get planners and photographers, at least, who are really looking to jump on that destination world. And so there are a lot of resources, I think, in the US.
Tell me a little bit, though, Rachel, about your business partner across in Paris. So, given, as you just said, then Gen Z is sort of going, Europe's looking nice. Yeah. How did it come about? And how are you finding things with destination weddings in Europe?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of kind of our backstory, we actually both took over the company from a previous owner who is French but was based in New York, and opened kind of the company in two different areas. we took over ownership, kept it alive, rebranded a little bit, changed the name, and kept kind of working together because we have found that the partnership has always really worked well for us. I mean, we see some similarities and some differences. I mean, New York City is always going to have differences to anywhere in terms of, again, just everything's at our fingertips. We can host a 1 day kind of nightlife sort of wedding here, and your guests can do whatever they want really for the rest of the weekend. Whereas, if we're checking guests out to, the south of France or wherever the case may be, she's really diving into at least a 3 day wedding weekend, if not more.
Yeah.
So she's seeing definitely, a full weekend experience. Whereas I'd say my scope of that tends to be maybe 50-50. It depends on the couple and what they're looking to do. Yeah. And then, style wise, there are just so many options. It's hard to kind of find a lane, I guess, in
Yeah.
this world of weddings. You've got kind of the classic, like almost Upper East Side New York, buttoned up wedding, if you will. You've got the Brooklyn warehouse. You've got, the European style. You've got the beach wedding, and I'm sure you guys maybe see a bit of that in Australia. And I think what we try to find is, we call it an approachable style luxury. So, an event where a couple feels themselves and they feel that it's a representation of themselves. And I think that can be many things, but we always try to kind of find that through line between New York and Europe that connects us and keeps the vision of the company fairly streamlined in that way.
Yeah, I can't even imagine like dealing with all these couples from, I imagine all over the US. Do you have couples from like Europe or Australia or anything come to New York?
We've had a few Australian couples in New York specifically. I did speak with one couple a couple years ago. I always think about them. They were living in Australia, but they were just wanting like a New York destination.
Yeah.
Um, Most often though, it's Australians who live now in the city, and they're, kind of inviting their family and friends from Australia to come up and experience New York. So yeah, we definitely see a mix there. And Europeans, I think, celebrate weddings a little bit differently. So it's not so much of the kind of show, I guess, if you will, that we see. I think less often we're seeing that we have kind of local European couples reaching out to us. However, we absolutely welcome it and really kind of enjoy making the experience of destination come to life for anybody.
It's a different approach, I feel, for the Europeans. Like, it's hard to explain, but from the outside, it looks like they just keep things in house. They just keep things
Yeah,
really neat and nice. And
quiet.
yeah, yeah, it looks idyllic from the
I
outside.
know.
So, like,
That's why we all feel so relaxed when we come back from Europe, I think.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't know. They've got a way. They've got a way. So,
Yes.
what are you finding the biggest challenges for couples are around destination weddings? Like, what are they struggling with?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of things. In terms of destination, I think that, you know, first and foremost, if people don't have their sights set on a certain region or that kind of reason why that I was talking a little bit about, and really just want for this to be an experience, which absolutely, again, it's completely fine. They're sort of left with this blank slate. Like, where in the world do we do this? And
Oh,
oftentimes, and everyone's a little bit different, but oftentimes we're not traveling in that sense where we, that these couples may have seen the world, but maybe they haven't seen it under the lens of touring a venue in that kind of light. I mean, there are even places that I went to before I was a wedding planner, and going back to them with the wedding mindset, you just look at things a little bit differently. So,
yes.
some of that just feels so blank canvas and really hard to kind of imagine what that wedding might look like there. And so many factors of just, is this okay for us to bring our guests here for a full weekend? Are there restaurants nearby? Are there any vendors that live here? Are we flying everyone in from other areas? Those kinds of questions. And it's not necessarily that a couple has to have their full wedding planned before they can sign a venue, but having all of those big conversations, I think, is completely normal, but it can feel a little bit daunting. So I think the way I try to kind of support that is just by letting them know that that's normal, that's fine. These conversations are big, and it's not always going to be this way. I think that's the kind of thing that couples kind of take a deep breath and they're like, okay, good. Like, this is not what every day of wedding planning is going to feel like, when we're booking their photographer. the whole earth is not like shattering, it gets easier. It's just these big initial conversations are a lot.
Yeah. Because there's massive moving pieces at the start, right, Rachel? I mean, if I was planning a wedding here in Australia, then there are simple things that you can just sort of not even have to worry about. The transport is going to be easy, visas, yeah, planes, venues generally, just getting around, access to food, drinks, staff, vendors. It's all
Hmm.
it's just right there at your fingertips. But I can imagine if you're planning something on the cliffs there in Greece, that you're going, okay, well, first of all, does it have running water? Are there toilets? Like there's really basic building blocks that you're having to consider before, you can even say, yep, that destination is where they're going.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are so many, I mean, couples who have a very extravagant, no, I don't even know if I would say extravagant, but let's say like maybe remote vision for a destination might be looking to have 30 people, but we also might have to fly in, 30 vendors. So it's just
Yes.
the person for person or that kind of like ability to have resources, I think is important. And I think the biggest thing too that I try to allow couples to do is pivot. It's kind of like they might come to I've had this happen more often than not when they come to me with a blank slate, we're looking at venues and they
Yep.
say, "You know what? We've got big families and we need 200 guests, period, end of story. Like we've already put together our guest list. It's crazy." And then we start going and looking at venues and they start saying, "Well, what about this one? What about this one?" And they're all, max of 150, max of 150, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And the smaller your guest count gets, it opens up a few more options for you. And then sometimes they'll say, you know what, we took a look and we think that this venue is for us. We're going to figure it out with our guest list. And me allowing them to have that conversation room for growth and pivoting and change is, I think, really important. And it doesn't
Mm.
stress me. I think that it's not this like, oh, now we're back to the drawing table. It's like, okay, let's regroup. Let's talk about it. It's like when you're buying a house. It's like all these checked boxes.
Mm.
Does this check the box of schools nearby and then this and that? And maybe something's got to give in some of those scenarios. And so allowing them to decide their priorities in real time is important too.
But of course, they don't know their priorities when they start out, right? Which is why you're just, so valuable to them, I could imagine, Rachel. They could come in and go, yeah, let's go south of France. Let's go super remote, tiny little village. Yeah. And you're the one who I can imagine might be, raining on their parade a little to say, well, yeah, it's possible, but this is what it's going to take to bring the resources to that little village. Do you find those conversations hard when you have to bring the reality into their dream?
Yes and no. I mean, I think couples are hiring a planner for that level of expertise. And, you know, I think that something that I have learned over the years is that being a yes person gets you far enough, but at the same time, being educational, I think tops that in many ways. And things saying,
Mm.
it's not that I don't want to do this, but here is the information, and then allowing couples to sit with that. And I think that when there's a sense of trust between the couple and the planner, it's not such a negative conversation
Mm.
as much as you think it would be. It's more of,
Mm.
it's collaboration, and couples more often than not are very grateful for the transparent feedback so that they can, because, it's for me, if we're going into a venue that I've worked at that's difficult or, this or that, it doesn't benefit me to hide that stuff from them and not have that
Yeah.
difficult conversation up front because it's all going to come out in the wash eventually. So,
there's,
you know.
there's no hiding it. Yeah. I like that, Rachel. Being a yes person can only get you so far.
Yeah, and then I guess the last thing I would say to add to it is just the budget conversation is a huge one early
Mm.
on. Having that in the early days is really important. And I think that there will be things that flex and things that, okay, you know what, we have had our eye on this photographer for years and years and years, and we're going to extend the budget for it or whatever the case may be. But when I ask couples an overall number, I try to have them budget about 40%, give or take, for the venue and catering and bar. So as we're shopping for venues, that number I'm kind of really always keeping in mind. It's like the term house poor. It's like you don't ever want to, just spend it all on the venue and then you realize that you don't have anything left for the rest of your wedding. And then at that point, now you're pretty much doubling your budget. So,
Mm.
helping them along with that in early days gets them really excited once the venue piece is locked in, because then they just feel so confident to go forward with the rest from there.
That's really so sensible. Do you know what one of the biggest regrets of newly married couples is? They'll say, I wish I had more memories from my wedding day. It was my favourite day. And one of the smartest ways I've seen couples do this is by making sure that they arrange a quick, foolproof, and really simple way to collect and share their guests' wedding photos. Because if you think about it, with an average wedding of, say, 100 guests, with every one of them taking 5 photos or videos, I mean, they'll take much more, of course, but I'm talking about the good ones. That's an opportunity for you to collect and download 500 extra photos and videos of their perspective on your wedding day. The stuff that happened that you didn't even get to see. But your barriers are overly complicated instructions or processes. Let's face it, if it takes too long, forces your guest into registering, if you've got to use a certain social media platform, or it's just a pain in the ass, and I'm looking at you, Dropbox and Google Drive, your family and friends just won't do it. And the tech fear and privacy concerns too, because no one wants to download yet another app that has a data breach. Never Miss Moments is an essential resource for busy soon-to-be-weds just like you. Your unlimited photo and video gallery is held in a secure server for 12 months, and for your guests, it's a one-click QR code solution. There's no app to download, no need to register, and it's quick. Win-win. Your guests will be able to look back on and reminisce about your wedding, and your fam and friends' different perspectives of your wedding day is such an incredible lifelong gift for you too. The team at Never Miss Moments are obsessed with giving you the very best customer service, and I'm stoked to be able to pass on their special 10% off discount offer on their galleries when you go to nevermissmoments.com/unbridely. So that's never miss moments, all one word, .com/unbridely, which, in case you don't already know, UNBRIDELY. The discount will show up in your cart automatically. And of course, I'll pop the link in the show notes for you as well. What about things like legal requirements for, if I was coming from Australia to New York, if I was coming from Australia to go to Paris, maybe, how do you help your couples through that side of things?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our, at least American venues, and sometimes in Europe as well, are requiring mostly just honestly legally like COIs in terms of what we need there. So we help them through kind of navigating the insurance requirements of the venue. It's easier than you think getting a COI.
So just for the listener, Rachel, COI?
Oh, sorry. Just a certificate of insurance. And all of your vendors have to have it and planners have it. I don't know off the top of my mind what it costs in Europe, but it's maybe $300 in New York to get one for
Okay.
the day. So it's not as scary as you think.
For like millions, right? For like millions of coverage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So that's being able to sleep at night.
Couples see that in a contract and they get really scared, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's a small cost for a one-day policy. Yeah, so that kind of bridge in terms of legals. I mean, of course, you're working with your vendors case by case, and honestly, in that front, it's more up to the vendor side for them to be able to operate in the destination that they're selling. So if a photographer is, doing business in X, Y, and Z, then that's kind of more on them than it is on the couple. So I think one thing that I'm not currently, it's ever changing is just kind of
Mm.
what's happening in America in terms of coming in and coming out. And that's kind of just maybe something that we're continuing to live navigate in terms of
Yeah.
people kind of coming here for destination. But luckily, we're in a position where most are flying out. And then most of our New York couples are already living here in America. So no major issues yet.
That's good to hear. What other sort of hurdles do you find couples come up against for destination weddings?
The bigger ones of just kind of putting in your guest list, working through the budget. And yeah, I think honestly, really that big one is just kind of where in the world do we do this? I think that's kind of the biggest one. And then you're kind of in that position where, you're inviting people to multiple events throughout the weekend, which of course, tends to cost a little bit more. So I think those are kind of the main ones that are top of mind for couples.
Mm. And for that couple who are going, this all sounds great. Where in the world would we go? Like, do you have any like ways that you help couples to shortlist where might be good for them rather than getting a dart and just a globe and
Yeah,
going for it?
just going for it. Um, I think that my business partner in France probably sees a little more of that. She has had some kind of feedback, and in terms of, I think that Croatia has become a popular, at least travel destination, but just kind of she sees very much live in terms of, again, just what kind of vendor access is there and can really guide
Mm,
couples through that. I think some of it just comes from her experience and where she's kind of planned and what she's seen work really well. And then she can kind of put a list of a few options in front of couples. It helps us to pull something out of them, whether it's just simply budget, guest count, time of year, and maybe like what continent you want to be on.
yeah. Can you narrow it down for us?
That
Yeah.
gives us enough to get like started a little bit. It's very rare that we don't have anyone who knows at least those things, I think.
Yeah, I could narrow it down to continent for you. Yes. And so, how do yourself and Beryl like start to create these personalized and memorable experiences for couples and their guests?
So leaning into the setting is really important. You want people to walk in and that it feels very much yours, but also like, why do we have these spring flowers on top of, a mountain in the middle of winter or whatever the case may be, just because we like them? Leaning into seasonality, leaning into the setting, working as much as possible with kind of local vendors as, to kind of bring in that food and beverage experience. And
Mhm.
maybe it's, a local vendor for music for some portion of the event, things like that, where if you are bringing them to this setting, you want them to feel like they're there. And I think that's really important. Personalizing it to them, it just, it depends on the couple and kind of who they are. And then we kind of bring those moments. Maybe it is the music or the fashion or, whatever the case may be for who they are and kind of how to make that come to life. It's so variable on each couple and kind of we do use them as the inspiration. It's kind of hard for us to, just pull it completely out of thin air. It's so nice to really get to know them and who they
Mm.
are and see that shine through.
Yeah, surely, like their personalities and how they gel and where their preferences lie. I can imagine that you'd be pulling those out, but then trying to blend that with the local cultural sort of feel for, yeah, as you said, music and food and outfits, even. Can I ask, like, off the top of your head, can you think of one of your most favorite weddings that you've done?
Oh my gosh, I don't know if I have any favorites. I love them all.
Oh, come on, Rachel.
Yeah, I put the blood, sweat, and tears into each of them equally. I don't know if I have necessarily a favorite. We did a wedding last May, which I still just resonates with me a lot, where we were up in the Hudson Valley and we did this really fun welcome party where the couple just kind of had like their guests really lean into that farm chic kind of upstate
Mm.
kind of a style in New York. And we brought in a bluegrass band, that kind of stuff. Just I think because I'm from Texas, it just really speaks to my like Southern heart a little bit. So I think some of those, and I'm so lucky to get to plan up in the Hudson Valley. I don't know, for listeners that haven't been there, it's just north of the city. It really starts once you get about an hour north, and it's just beautiful rolling hill country. You can't really believe that you're in New York State, close to the city when you're up there. It's really stunning and just kind of leans into this kind of crowd that pops up there from the city for, a weekend in the country kind of thing. And it's really special.
It sounds like a great place to get away and like decompress.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah. So, okay. So, heading up there, bluegrass bands, like, are you seeing any other, I guess, trends or Anything that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, trend wise, I think we're really seeing, music wise, people are, I think, leaning a lot more into live music than ever before. I love a DJ. Honestly, DJs can do this really cool, they call it like a DJ hybrid, where they have like live musicians playing next to them. And I think even couples that are bringing in a DJ almost always nowadays are doing the hybrid situation or going
Mm.
live, which I think is really fun.
We're seeing that too here. Like it just
Are
brings
you?
so much energy.
Energy.
It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard to replicate with just a DJ or, a lonely little Spotify playlist in the corner attached to a speaker. Like
Yeah.
it brings everything to life.
It does. And, I think another trend that I'm seeing is the nightlife aspect. The after party used to be such an afterthought.
Okay.
And now I definitely feel, I mean, especially around New York City, but really anywhere, people are leaning into that after party as much as the wedding itself and really bringing in a whole new experience to that part of the night, which I think is really fun. And it does well, no matter where in the world you are. So definitely love seeing that trend.
Well, I mean, yeah, you've got the city that never sleeps. Why wouldn't you take advantage of it? But I mean, are you seeing like, supper? Are you seeing snacks at night? Are you seeing like, is there a outfit change?
Yeah, outfit change, sometimes a little change in location rather than, I mean, even if it's within the same venue, but just into a different room, something to
Yeah.
just break the night a little bit. Definitely late night food, which you can get really creative with that kind of stuff. New York slices of pizza, or, if you're in the South, like chicken and waffles, I don't know, just fun stuff like that that you can really go and lean into late night, which is really fun.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I love it. So the couple listening are going, holy hell, we've just felt a spark. We want to have a destination wedding, but this all sounds so hard. What are your top 3 tips to make the planning process smoother and more enjoyable for these couples, Rachel?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would say start with a budget and do your best to stick to it as you're venue searching, because that's just a big, big portion of it. Percentage wise, I would say, if you can, try to find a place that's meaningful to you and that you feel relaxed in, even if it's
Mm.
not somewhere that you've lived, or if it doesn't have, a significant tie to your relationship. But if you just go there and you feel like a good version of yourself and you take a deep breath and you're so happy that you're there, you might more than likely feel that way on your wedding weekend, which I think is very important. And then, yeah, I think just maybe the third is just, again, the piece of advice that it's normal to feel stressed at the beginning and to change your mind and to have conversations. It's, better that way than to feel so lost in it and not bring
Mm.
up the big conversations that need to happen. So, yeah, I would say those are kind of my three, I think, tips for any couples who are just diving into it.
That's beautiful. Rachel, I love the second tip there, just about thinking about where. But I don't know, like as a kid growing up, and I don't know why, because I have no Italian roots at all. I do like pasta, but apart from that, I always just felt like that would be my happy place. And when I went traveling in my 20s, I got there and I'm like, it felt like a second home. And I don't know why. And I couldn't put my finger on it. And it's really nothing that I've experienced before in any other country. But that is such a good tip. The place where you
Yeah,
think you could feel happy.
it is so important. I felt that way, like you're saying about Italy. I felt that way before I moved to New York City. My husband and I spent the whole first couple minutes of this call talking about finding a location that means something to you. But my husband and I got married in Arizona, and it really wasn't a place that tied us together all that much at all, except that, we both felt very relaxed there. And I think luckily for us, for the position that we were in, most of our guest count was coming from Texas and New York. And so we felt a little more okay asking, of the travel, because it was kind of like it was less than a 4-hour flight for most people. So it was kind of like a little mini destination. But those kinds of things, I think, trust your gut on how you feel in a certain area, because it'll make you very happy to be there celebrating with everyone.
Yeah. And you've just inspired me, I think, to chat with husband about maybe going to Japan again. For our next big anniversary.
Yes.
Yes, excellent. That sounds great. That sounds great.
Yeah.
And so for the couple listening, if they're going, really love the sound of Rachel, love her approach, love her vibe, want to do this destination thing, like how can they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. You can email me, Rachel at apricityeventco.com. Website is apricityeventco.com. And then I'm on Instagram as well. apricityevent.co is our Instagram page. So yeah, absolutely happy to have people to reach out and can help you navigate the process.
That's so cool, Rachel. Thank you so much for your time.
Of course. Thanks so much, Camille. I really appreciate it.
Goodbye, New York. That about wraps it up for this episode of the Unbridled podcast. For the links and resources we mentioned, please head to the show notes. And if you love the show, please review and subscribe on the podcast platform you're on now so you don't miss out on a single episode. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, weddings are a team sport. Catch you soon.